go straight into story number one. Who really commits the most crimes in America? A history lesson they can't erase. This is Ellie. Welcome to The Real America. Today we're going to talk about real crime, but not just what you see on TV. Not the headlines that want you to fear the black and the brown faces. Not political speeches that call immigrants animals and invaders. No, we're talking about the real story. The one that begins long before mugshots was ever printed. The first major crime on American soil that starts at the real beginning when Europeans first arrived on these shores. They didn't come in peace. They didn't even ask permission. They didn't negotiate. They stole, they raped, they murdered, they enslaved, they exterminated. Entire indigenous nations gone. Ancient civilization wiped off the map. Theft of land, breaking of every treaty ever signed, systematic erase of language, culture, identity. If crime is about what doesn't belong to you, through violence and dissent, then colonization was the first and largest crime committed in America. And it wasn't indigenous committing it. It wasn't Africans. It wasn't Mexicans. It was Europeans. And they wrote themselves into the history book as heroes. The second crime, slavery. As if genocide wasn't enough, the next great crime was born. The kidnapping, trafficking, and enslavement of millions of Africans, stripped from their families, shackled on ships, worked to death for profit. Black bodies built the wealth of America. Cotton, sugar, railroads, banking, empires, all dripping with blood. Slavery ended. The crime against Black Americans didn't stop. They were branded as criminals simply for existing. Vagrancy laws, Jim Crow, segregation, lynching, mass incarceration. Being Black was treated as a crime and still is today. The third crime, land theft from Mexico, Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico. All Mexican lands until the United States decided they wanted it. Through lies, war, and broken promises, entire regions were seized. Mexican families who had lived on their land for generations were suddenly labeled as illegal. The real criminals wore uniforms and carried flags. The victims were made into villains again. Fast forward to modern crime myth. Now let's get into today. We're told over and over that Black, brown, and indigenous communities are violent. But the FBI own numbers say white Americans commit about 60% of the violent crimes. White Americans commit the majority of property crimes, burglaries, larceny, and arson, terrorism. White men lead white-collar crimes, stealing billions through fraud, corruption, and scams. Meanwhile, Black and brown communities are over-policed. White communities are under-policed. Minorities are arrested more, and not because they commit more crime, but because they are hunted harder. If police patrolled white suburbs, the universities, the business parks, the way they do stalk Black neighborhoods, white arrests would explode overnight. The real American crime problem isn't Black. It isn't brown. It never was. Serial killers, mass shooters, domestic terrorists. When it comes to some of the worst horrors, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Dylan Roof, Stephen Paddock, Adam Lanza, all white men. Yet the media calls them loners. They get sympathy. They get magazine covers. Meanwhile, a Black teenager can get killed in the streets for holding a cell phone, and he's called a thug. Not just injustice. It's brainwashing. White collar crime, the silent billion-dollar theft. White collar criminals quietly strip billions from hardworking Americans every year. Banking fraud, healthcare scams, corporate theft, no sirens, no mugshots, no TV specials because the system protects their own. We're not here to shame. We're here to heal. We aren't telling you this to shame anyone. We're telling it because the truth is the first step to healing for centuries. Indigenous people, Black Americans, Mexicans, and immigrants were shamed, blamed, and criminalized. And now, when the truth is finally spoken, some people can't handle it. That's not our burden to carry. We speak truth not to division, but to finally unite in a real, honest way where no one has to live under someone else's lies ever again. Welcome to the real America. And if this makes some people uncomfortable, good. Comfort never changed anything.